If you can't retain and you can't bring on new clients or customers, you're not going to grow. Those that are not successful are those that think they have a growth mindset
Hmm.
and who like the idea of bringing someone in to do the work, but are not willing to give up control. You can never coach without confidentiality.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
build trust without open, transparent, authentic connection. It's important for any fractional to have mutual accountability with your peers and with, whomever you're reporting to say, I got to hold up my end of this bargain in order for us to accomplish this ultimate.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Hey, this is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm the managing partner at Epiphany Business Consulting, and I'm going to be your host today. In our studio, we have Megan Dimmer. Megan.
Hello, Rick. Excited to be
Hey,
here.
how are Hey, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. I've been looking forward to this conversation because you are one of those fractional executives that helps to make the world a better place. So let's do this. Let's jump right in. Tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure, no problem. So I have spent a career in sales leadership and general management and love sellers. I feel like sellers are my tribe, if you will. And so throughout my career, my highlights, my high points have always been two things, right? So helping individuals grow
Mhm.
personally and professionally, and also helping businesses grow. And so on the professional side, I've pivoted into offering fractional CRO and CEO services, as
Mhm.
well as doing executive coaching and career coaching, because that's really where my passion is. And on the personal side, I have an amazing 16-year-old son who keeps me busy, who is driving. So now I'm liberated and he's liberated. Yeah. So that's my story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you were doing some special work with women as well, right?
Absolutely. My true passion, I coach anyone who has a growth mindset, and I
Mhm.
work with businesses who also, the founders or the owners, the CEOs, have a growth mindset. But I really enjoy and have been focusing most recently on helping women. So helping women achieve next level success.
Nice, 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 nice. And you have a program, or you have a group or something like that, or how does that work?
So specifically, currently support business owners, women business owners, from a CRO perspective
Mhm.
fractionally.
Mhm.
I have done some fractional CEO work, which is really sort of a right hand role to a CEO who wants to
Yeah.
focus on their craft.
Yeah.
I also do individual coaching with women, and I'm in the process of trying to build a peer advisory group for women. So,
Oh, that's cool.
women who have other women to lean on, to share experiences, to talk about personal and professional opportunities for growth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So with the fractional work, I mean, what made you go into that direction versus, say, just traditional consulting?
Well, I really find that organizations, when they are really looking to achieve sustainable growth,
Hmm.
the opportunity typically is one that they don't have the resources internally to bring
Hmm.
someone in full time, but they're looking to have someone on the team to collaborate with, to really help build, but not on that full time level. And
Yeah.
I'm a collaborator. And so, although I still do some growth strategy consulting, I really like to be on the team. I like to be able to coach people on the team, help build. One of my, I would say, superpowers is building high performing teams with top performers, industry superstars. And so when I do fractional work, it allows for me to really sit in the team, in the organization, understand what's happening, really, and oftentimes I'm coaching the CEO if they're looking for that as well. And so it's really
Interesting.
helping to build internally a lot of camaraderie and strategy in house versus sitting on the outside like a consultant.
Interesting, interesting. So what is that like? I mean, what's a day in the like or life or a week in the life look like? I mean, I imagine it varies from week to week, but kind of give us like a high level on that.
So, as a fractional leader, I would say day to day, week to week, typically, right, in an engagement, there is an established time frame of how much time you're going to spend within the organization. So that can be in increments of, let's say, 10, 15, 20, up to my limit really is up to like 30 hours a week, right? Day to day, you really decide which days. So you carve out or you set expectations, high expectations, but you set expectations with the owner or the CEO, whomever you're working directly with as a fractional. And you really have to have strong boundaries on both sides because it's difficult because there's this expectation, right? Of, I really need you to help me do this thing. And so upfront, strong communication expectations, continued communication throughout the relationship.
Yeah.
But, day to day could be a couple days a week, a couple hours during those days a week. Sometimes people want one day, they want you to come in for one day a week and really sit with them and their
Mhm.
teams. So, what I have found really is when you're starting off, there's more time spent because you're really doing assessment work, understanding the organization, understanding the people, really on a listening tour. And
Yeah.
then at that point, you can establish how much time do you need to spend within the organization. And so that's typically the sort of process.
Interesting. Interesting. And you mentioned boundaries. What are examples of some boundaries that you might put in place?
Well, as I'm
And
sure
why are
you
they
can
so
imagine,
important as well?
well, boundaries are important in any relationship, right? Especially when there is only a certain amount of time agreed to. So,
Hmm.
like in consulting, you've agreed to X amount of time that you're going to spend on a project. And because you're in the team, you're on the team, you're working with the team, and anybody within that executive leadership team with the owner or the founder, you have to set boundaries and limits and guardrails around how much time are we spending and an expectation of, if we go beyond that, we have to have an agreement because this is not a full time role, right? And so that is very important because what happens is you have scope creep
Yeah.
and it starts to become something out of control.
Yeah.
Early on, if you set those expectations, you're not setting a precedent of, okay, maybe we can do extra hours. Okay, sure, we'll let it slide. And then it really does get out of control. So that's what I meant by boundaries.
So how does that work? I mean, you're a fractional, you're essentially a part-time member of the executive team. And I mean, business is happening every day. How do you emergencies happen? I mean, how do you manage that within those boundaries? Or because if you've hit a boundary, and you've got an emergency, the team is depending on you.
Well, the team knows that it's a fractional leader, right? And so there's always open communication with other people on the executive leadership team. Typically that founder will be the person who steps in, and if it is, something's on fire or they need to touch base, certainly there's that open communication where if you reach out, you set, an expectation of, I'll get back with you in X amount of hours. The reality is most fractionals, including me, often have other things going on, right? So other fractional engagements, or, I have coaching clients that I'm working with. And so I can't drop everything just because there's a fire somewhere that, we obviously need to get to. So it really is this sort of red, yellow, green expectation of, if it's on fire and it's red, then what are we going to do? And you have that conversation with the leadership team.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, very few scenarios where something is so on fire that I need to drop everything I'm doing to go work through it. Oftentimes, as well, I've built a leadership team around me. And so there would be a VP of sales or a director of sales who typically, and marketing, right?
Hmm.
And customer success, who those individuals can really navigate what's happening within their team. And then
Sure.
they'll reach out when necessary.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. That makes sense. I like what you said about setting those expectations up front.
Mhm.
Because I mean these things do happen. People get fired. Or whatever it is. I get that. What is that?
Well, I would say that it is a very flexible process, right? Because every organization, as you know, is different, and
For
every
sure.
leader is different, and every team is different. So sometimes the organization, depending on the stage of the business, may
Uh-huh.
have built a team that you're inheriting as a fractional. They may have
Okay.
no one on the team. And so it really depends on those different, let's call it criteria. So, and that is, dependent upon whatever's happening in the business. And so typically, that assessment phase is getting to know other people on the leadership team, getting to know anybody that's on your team, understanding expectations, up front of what are the goals?
Yeah.
What are we trying to accomplish? Why are you bringing me in? Right. And that's established early on so that then when you go in and you, as a fractional, when I go in and I have those conversations and I'm gathering information, that information then really helps to form what's going to happen next.
Hmm.
So let's say that there was a leader who left and you're backfilling a leader who has left as a
Yeah.
fractional.
Okay.
A lot of times there are things that need to be repaired. There is coaching that needs to happen. There could be individuals on the team that you need to coach to identify, are they the right fit? Are they in the right seat? Do we have the right resources for them? And so all of that upfront work has to happen
Yeah.
before you can really get in and do the job, whatever that fractional role is, right? So I've sat in different seats. As I mentioned, I've been fractional CEO, I've been fractional CRO, I've been interim. And in every scenario, just depending upon whatever the landscape is in the organization, really determines what will be next after that listening tour and that information gathering. But
Yeah.
typically, right, there is this opportunity, for example, as a CRO, to see what's the current go to market strategy, what sort of planning has been in place, what's been implemented, and then what needs to happen from a systems and people and process perspective to
Hmm.
get everything how it needs to be in order to accomplish, do we need to stabilize? Do we want to grow? Because as I mentioned, every organization I work with and founder is in a growth mindset, but
Hmm.
they may not be prepared to grow. And so those are the things that we really have to understand before we can jump into this now what's next, let's get going sort of mode.
Yeah. 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 How long does it take? And I guess every organization is different, but I mean, how long does it take to go through kind of that process of working with the team and eventually having influence over the team to really leading the team?
Well, the reality is typically you're leading the team very quickly, right? Typically you're being brought in as a fractional because there is a hole, there is a need. Now, if you're brought into an organization where the expectation is as a CRO, for example, right? Or if I can speak on behalf of other roles, if you think functional areas, if there's a gap and there's a need and that person hasn't been there, there's never been someone in that seat,
Hmm.
it's a lot less of the getting to know the team that's
Hmm.
reporting to you. It's getting to know the organization, getting to understand the goals, and then
Hmm.
whatever your playbook is, dependent upon your functional area, which all of us, if you're coming in as fractional, typically you've been doing this. And I don't want to say rinse and repeat, but it really does become I have my tool bag, right? I know what I need to accomplish with all the
Yeah.
different things that I've gathered over 25 plus years of a career in this area. And so going in and saying, dependent upon the stage of the org,
Yeah.
dependent upon how many individuals there are or are not on the team, then getting to know, but you're the leader. They're looking to you for your expertise. They brought you in for a reason and they're paying you. And so it really is making sure, like, I have to go back to communication is so key, right? And we know that in all relationships, but certainly as a fractional, when you're not there full time, you're in constant communication with the founder.
Mm.
Typically, that's who you're reporting to if you're C-suite. And it's making sure, okay, are we meeting the expectations? This is the plan. This was your vision. This is a strategy I've created to bounce against it. These are the individuals on the team. Always, if there is a team, a very important thing that has to happen. There has to be an introduction of you as here's your background.
Mhm.
Here's why we brought this person in. You are now reporting to this individual, right?
Mhm.
Even though they're in,
Mhm.
in helping them to understand what fractional looks like we talked about earlier. But then it's up to you as a fractional to establish this trust, to establish your, let's call it leadership stance within the organization. And typically we've been doing this as a leader for so many years that we are in leadership stance all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it is, okay, what about my background do they need to know? What is it that we need to accomplish to build the trust? And if there has been a departure and you're backfilling a departure of someone, oftentimes it didn't go necessarily well. And so it
Mhm.
could take longer, right? They may
Mhm.
not trust because human
Yeah.
beings who have been burned, especially by someone in a role or a functional area, may not trust a CRO, for example. And
Yeah.
so it's building that while trying to stabilize, while knowing that the ultimate goal is to grow. Does that answer
Yeah.
your question?
It does. It does. It does. I think, the follow-up question to that though is, I mean, what kinds of things do you do? You talked about, building trust. What kinds of things do you do to put into, people's emotional bank accounts or the trust bank accounts, if you will?
So that's a really good question, Rick. And I would say the biggest thing is because I have my coaching background,
Mhm.
I do go into a space of it has to be safe, right? So you can never coach without confidentiality.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't build trust without open, transparent, authentic connection. And so I dependent upon the human that I'm working with, right, to build the trust. And you have to build trust with each person.
Mhm.
It's really getting to know them and understanding their motivations and helping them understand why I'm at the organization, right?
Yeah.
Helping them understand that Megan Dimmer, right, fractional, whatever, but Megan Dimmer is a human, wants to help people grow and organizations grow. And that my passion is that. And so I will tell you, there have been scenarios where I have, let's call it inherited a team. And there have been people on that team who either were in the wrong seat, who maybe stayed longer than they would have liked to. Maybe they were staying longer than the organization wanted them to. And
Yeah.
I am able to build relationships with those individuals to either coach them up, coach them in, or help them realize that maybe it's not a good fit. And at the end of the day, the benefit is to them as a human and a professional and to the organization as well. And
Yeah.
so I have found that when I go in authentically and, transparently and
Yeah.
confidentially, that the outcome is far better than trying to, can't, I've seen this where people go in and it's like, I am in charge and this, and it's, that doesn't work. You and I both know, right? That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so, but hand in hand with the founder, always important, where they're saying, here is your fractional leader of this functional area. They are now responsible for making this happen. We need you to buy in. And
Yeah.
certainly you get friction always at some point with someone, right? That's just inevitable. But
Yeah.
building that trust up front and being authentic and, open communication and transparent is key. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I think the other piece to that though is the existing leader. Whether it's a founder or they have a leadership team or whatever. What kinds of leadership teams or individuals tend to be more successful? Bringing in.
It's a really good question. And I'll tell you from all of the experiences I've had in so many different organizations, I will tell you that I'm going to answer this not who is most successful, but who will not be successful, if that's okay.
For sure.
Those that are not successful are those that think they have a growth mindset
Hmm.
and who like the idea of bringing someone in to do the work in whatever functional area it is, but are not willing to really give up control.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I
Makes
say
sense.
that, so often I see that organizations, and this isn't just with fractionals, right? This is founder or a leader, a CEO, for example,
Hmm.
brings in functional area leaders based on their subject matter expertise, and then says all the right things at the beginning. Yes, I want to grow. Yes, I love what you're bringing to the table, but then can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And what happens is there are a group of typically very tenured senior executives who have been doing their thing, their craft for a lot of years. And they're sitting around looking at each other going, what are we doing here? Why did
Hmm.
we get brought into this situation? And oftentimes some of them are full time, right, with the company. And
Hmm.
some of, I have been fractional, and you're looking at each other and at the founder or owner or CEO saying, why are we here if you're going to tell us how we need to do our thing when we know that you haven't done this thing and you brought us in to grow? The more time we spend having you tell us what we need to do, the less likely we are to get to that point where we can grow. And so it
Hmm.
becomes a real problem. So
Yeah.
I would say then on the flip side, it is those that are successful are those that really truly have a growth mindset and who
Yeah.
really say, I need to step back. I need to bring in people who know this functional area, who have experience doing this thing. And I'm going to trust Not that I'm not going to expect them to show me how they're doing against metrics, KPIs. That's imperative, right?
Yeah.
Reporting and open communication about how you're tracking is imperative. But
Yeah.
every time I get in the way, they need to be able to know if I get in the way and try to do their job, we are going to take steps back. And so that conversation, by the way, is so important before you engage as a fractional.
Wow.
And I've even gotten to the point really where I like for CEOs, business owners, founders to go through some sort of personality behavior assessment if they
Wow.
haven't already. If they have, I like them to share it with me and I share mine with them
Hmm.
so that we know how to work together. So that we
Okay.
know, right, if they are a dominant, hyper dominant personality and not very organized, and, we could come up with a list of sort of those personality types or behavior, it is imperative to say, well, okay, then it's, if this is you, well, this is me. And this is
Yeah.
how we need to communicate. And this is the expectations we need to set. And
Yeah.
you brought me in for a reason. I know how to communicate with you when you are inevitably it's their baby
Yeah.
or they're the one ultimately responsible to the board. And so they are going to, of course, want to get involved. And it's like, how do you communicate with them to ensure, sure, you can be involved, but I'm still going to do the thing that you brought me in to do? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It does. It does. It does. What's rattling around in my brain is that founder, that has built that company, and they have their hands in everything,
Yes.
and they recognize it's like, hey, I need a CRO because what we're doing in marketing, what we're doing in sales is just not connecting the dots. But there's still, feels like there should be some level of teaching them that they don't have to be all things to the organization. So it's like, it's that person you described that's just like, hey, I can't work with this person, but perhaps there's a glimmer of hope. I mean, does that exist? Is that a thing?
Do you mean, are there people who actually will let you do your thing? Is that the question?
No, the question is, you've got a founder that's never worked with a consultant, never worked with the fractional, is used to having their hands in everything. And then you come in and they really have potential, but they need a little bit of a paradigm shift to be able to, let go and do what you do. And so my question is really, so you see this one corner over here where that there's no opportunity to, make that impact that you can potentially make. But then there's this other side where perhaps there's through coaching and development, perhaps this founder can be that ideal client that you want. Does that happen?
Well, yes, and they have to want to be coached.
Yeah.
And that is where I've seen it go two different ways, right? Where if they know more than others, if that's their personality, where they tend to be the person who knows the most in the room, right? And they typically, founders are successful. Typically, they're really smart, wicked smart. Typically, there are these things, they have ego because
Yeah.
they took a risk and it's their baby
Yeah.
oftentimes, right? And they will tell you that. And so what happens is it's either, are you willing to come along with me, right? I'm seeing this happen.
Hmm.
Have you noticed that? And this is me, right? Speaking with them, that this has happened. Like this scenario came up. And instead of you coming to me and us talking about it, you went and did it like you've always done it, which is okay. You're
Hmm.
human. It's your
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
if we want to be successful and we actually want to achieve these goals that we've agreed to,
Yeah.
right? And for me to accomplish my KPIs that we've put in place, you need to let me do the thing. And so if you feel like there's something that I need to be doing differently, certainly let's discuss it.
Yeah.
But right. And so you start to realize in those conversations if someone's going to come along with you or if it really is they like the idea. And you'll hear me say that a lot, right? They like the idea of me. They like the idea of fractional. They like the idea of functional leaders.
Yeah.
But they're so used to doing their own thing and they're so, in it that they can't get out.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
recipe for failure.
Yeah.
It's a tough conversation. I've had that conversation enough times
Yeah.
where if you don't allow people to do their thing and you go do your thing, which is typically they're a visionary and they may have, whatever if it's a professional services organization, for example, they
Hmm.
may be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever the profession is, and
Right.
they want to go do that thing.
Right.
right? And so go do that thing and be the visionary and let me do what I'm good at. And
Right.
so if they can come along, awesome. If they don't, unfortunately, there's you can't change people. You can coach if they're willing to take it, you know? And
Yeah.
so I go in typically with that conversation, right? I've had experiences where, and I take them through the scenario so that they
Interesting.
understand that it's okay, it's human, it's what people experience, but you really have to be committed to a shift, to that paradigm shift in the
Yeah.
organization.
You're very you've been very human centric, with everything that you talked about. That seems, I mean, as a leader, that's certainly, part of the equation. But I mean, we also have the business itself, and its need to grow and its need to survive and all of that good stuff. Where does that come into the conversation? You talked about KPIs a couple of times. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So, growing the business, how does that come into play?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I would say, I hope I'm answering your question directly. Once you've established the relationships and you know what the objective is, right? So you know the goal is we want to accomplish, let's say it's SaaS, and we want to accomplish this, MRR, ARR. We want to accomplish these, improve our churn rate. We want to upsell, whatever it
Mhm.
is, whatever those specific metrics are, and the ultimate goal is, let's say we want to raise money, or there's an expectation from the board, whatever it is. The getting everybody rowing in the same direction is really important. The really doing a stress test on the systems and the processes as I described, and then really getting into the field, if you will. I mean, I guess it's not always a field anymore if we're remote, but spending time with the people
Mhm.
from manager down to individual contributor, understanding their day to day, right? And
Mhm.
making sure that you know what all of the different, from a CRO perspective, all of the different steps are, or stages are in the sales cycle, and
Yeah.
understanding all, who are the current customers, who are the prospects, what are the industries, like you have to really, what's the total addressable market, you have to know everything about that business
Yeah.
to then figure out what levers do I need to pull as it relates to that go to market strategy that we've established,
Yeah.
right? In terms of, do I need to get really involved in building partnerships? Do I need to get, is that a whole? Are we doing demos the way that we need to be doing demos? Is it, what's our closure rate? Are our
Yeah.
leads quality? Like there's so many things that you need to work through, which you would
Yeah.
do as in-house leader, right? It's
Right.
just in I would tell you that what I love about fractional is it's you have to make the most of your time. There
Right.
is an efficiency formula that you have to leverage because you only have so much time to accomplish the thing. And so it's you have to be specific, you have to be focused, you have to really, ultimately say, I want these humans who are trusting me or starting to trust me, right? To be able to perform at their best, or we need to find people that can complement, right? To get
Uh-huh.
them at a level where they're performing so that they can accomplish the thing. And
Right.
ultimately, that goal is the thing.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
those humans and those processes and those systems all need to be working, as you know, like a well-oiled machine to accomplish that goal. Did that answer
Right.
your question?
It does. It does. So what we have here is we have a team and we've got KPIs, and the team is going to be the tools essentially that enable achievement of those KPIs. You're the one that's leading. You're getting everybody rowing in the right direction. What does, I guess, success look like? I mean, obviously, achieving those KPIs, but I mean, overall, when you're going to be leaving an organization, what does that look like for you?
I think ultimately success looks like you've built the system, the team, whatever it is, right? Depending on what sort of resources the organization has to put toward this goal, but that you have accomplished the goals that you've set out to accomplish in agreement with that founder.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, there has to be consistent check ins. It's not like you get to the end and you're like, here we are and we didn't accomplish the goal, right? It's very much and they're not just revenue specific
Right.
KPIs. there are different drivers, as you know, that would lead to, as you're looking at projections, are we on track to hit this goal? Have we done these things that I, as the functional leader, will tell you as the owner or founder, from my professional opinion, these are the things that need to happen.
Yeah.
And if you want to get there, these are the resources we're going to need. These are right based on all of the analysis that I've done.
Beautiful.
And as you're checking, you're doing your touch points, checkpoints, whatever you want to call it over time, you
Hmm.
know if you're going to hit that goal or not. You
Yeah.
know if you've gotten the resources that you need, the support that you needed internally to get there. And there has to be that open and honest communication like, you know what, we're off. And oftentimes it's a product, could be product related. So if you really think like in a deliverable, and the deliverable doesn't have to be, it could be hours and people if it's a professional services organization, or it could be, software. And there is a leader of product, right? There's
Hmm.
going to be some functional leader that's responsible for whoever's delivering the product, who's ever building the product, could be engineering. And if that product that you're trying to sell is not, and as a CRO, right, is not performing,
Hmm.
or you're not hitting your roadmap that you had built out, so you're not meeting customer expectations on that deliverable,
Yeah.
it's really hard to upsell, it's really hard to retain, and it's really hard to grow, right? Because if you can't retain and you can't necessarily bring on new clients or customers, you're not going to grow.
Right.
And so that is where it becomes a all hands on deck. You really have to have relationships with others on the ELT to say, certainly you know what my objective is, but if these different things in the organization aren't working together, we will not as a company accomplish those goals. And
Yeah.
that's really key, right? Because oftentimes we as humans say, I can do this, I've got this, I've done it before. And we forget that there's other people that have to do their part, which is where mutual accountability comes in.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I would tell you. That's the other really key, I would call it a core value of mine, but it's important for any fractional thinking about doing it or currently in a seat. And I would say any leader for that matter, to have
Hmm.
mutual accountability with your peers, with yourself, and with whomever you're reporting to say, I got to hold up my end of this bargain in order for us to accomplish this ultimate goal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really important point. I mean, I've seen, and I've seen multiple times where, going into an organization and, sales team is doing something, things a certain way, and to your point, in order to, drive that revenue, improve their success, things have to change. But I've also seen where the leadership in the organization wasn't willing to push the team to do the things that they were supposed to do. What do you do in that situation?
So when you refer to leadership, are you referring to like the ultimate leader, whomever that is?
Ultimate,
Like
the
okay,
founder, the
okay. Well, that is back to what we talked about earlier, really. It's if things have been done a certain way, right? And it's an established, let's call it team, and they've been doing things for, a year, let's say, two
yeah,
years. And they've brought you in to as an expert, as a subject matter expert, yet they're allowing, and I've seen this happen time and time again, where people on the team who they've been working with go around you as the fractional leader to the owner or to the founder and say, I'm going to do this thing. And there's this agreement, this backdoor agreement. It is a recipe for failure, hands down, because it's when we think of the analogy of rowing in the same direction, there's literally people rowing in the same direction and somebody on like wave runner going against the wave, hitting it, and the whole team sort of like getting off pace, right? And
yes,
so it becomes this, we're never going to get there, but you have to use your voice
yeah,
as a fractional leader, as a leader in general, but you have to use your voice and you have to say, listen, I know this is happening. I know this is what you guys have done. And I know it's hard. Change is hard.
yeah,
But we agreed that we were going to come in and do this thing together. You
yeah,
brought me in for a reason. So if you want me to accomplish the goal that we've set together,
yeah,
and if our expectations we set up front are still what they are, then we got to get to a point where you're not allowing yourself, like you have to lead by example. The minute you let them do that, we are not going to accomplish this. We need
yeah,
everybody rowing. And so the minute that wave runner starts creating wreaking this havoc behind the scenes, you're not going to get there. And so I really think it's inevitable
Yeah.
If there are people in place and they're used to reporting to the owner, the founder, that's going to happen, but it's all in how you approach it. It's all in, we do these things happen, but if they keep happening, right? What do we think is going to happen? What do we think the result will be?
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't change.
Yeah.
And I will always go back to, if there is an owner, if there is a board, if there's a founder, they get to decide. It's their decision, right? Whether or not we're on the team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's their ultimate decision if they want to get out of the way to let the things happen.
Yeah.
And if they don't, it's okay. But for me, it's not an organization that I want to be in. It's not an environment that I want to be in. I want to collaborate. I want to have open communication. I want to be transparent. I want to coach. I want to have the space to accomplish the goals that have been set.
Yeah.
And if I can't have that space, I'm not going to be successful. And that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I will tap out.
Wow. Wow. So
And not
you,
in that way, right? I say that abruptly, but it is an open communication, open conversation with whomever to say, this can't keep happening. If it does, unfortunately, it's not a good fit. And
yeah.
you have to have the courage to have that conversation, because once that keeps happening, right? You allow that to happen,
Hmm.
it won't stop.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
learned behavior.
It sounds like, I mean, to be successful, I mean, it sounds like you really got to vet the people that you're working with.
100%.
What
You
does
have
that
to.
process look like?
It really is, at this stage for me, it is this understanding their personality.
Uh-huh.
It, and what happens is, if you think about how many people we meet, right? You meet someone and they seemingly are great and they seemingly have their stuff together and they seemingly have the best product in the world that's going to, take over the world, if you will. So you really have to have some patience in the process of, really, how can I get to know them, even if it's quickly,
Yeah.
through an assessment or through, whatever format you choose to use. But as a fractional, it's on you to say, all right, would you mind taking this, or can you share with me, have you done, whatever, Myers-Briggs or any of the several assessments that people have taken,
Yeah.
Enneagram, whatever it is? Can you share it with me? I'll share it with you. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And if you really look underneath the covers of that, you're going to see that they have a dominant personality. There typically is some, things, similarities
Yeah.
commonality between founders.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's not, but when it's there and it's there, and you can say, okay, do you agree? This is what it says. Do you agree? If you agree that this is who you are, then this is who I am. And this is
Yeah.
how I'm going to communicate with you.
Interesting.
And this is how you're going to communicate with me. And we agree, right? And this is going to be our relationship. And then when things start to seem to be going off the rails, you can go back to that. That's what I do. I go back to that and say, well, we knew that you were dominant and
Hmm.
that I was a collaborator.
Hmm.
And that when you, let's say, told someone that they shouldn't be working with me because you want them to be working with you, all of a sudden, I'm not going to be successful.
That makes
And
sense.
I understand that that's your personality. So maybe we can get together with that person and have a conversation where, if you want to be involved in that aspect because it's, you're a subject matter expert in that space, okay, but let's make sure that we're on the same page about it. And that's really where I think it's imperative. And I, too many times, Rick, have not done this
Mm.
and failed.
Mm.
And so I think it's key.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be. So I think one last question for you. So I think what happens, with, as a founder, as an owner, you get to a point where you're doing everything that you can do. So if you're, the producer, you're the subject matter expert or whatever, you've done everything that you know how to do in order to move this business forward. At what point would I, being that founder, at what point would I truly be ready to say, "Hey, Megan, I need your help." I know it's a mental thing, it's a financial thing, it's a, control thing, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what do I want to do? How do I get there? How do I say, what, I need to go ahead and pull that trigger?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're feeling overwhelmed by all of the different tasks that you're having to do to accomplish your goal.
Yeah.
If you don't know what your goal is, right? Sometimes that's time to bring somebody in. Right, there are several different, I would say, points in time, but ultimately, if it's not feeling good anymore and you're worn out and you're realizing, I actually haven't spent my career selling. I've spent my career as whatever, doing an engineer or whatever the case is. Although I've had to bootstrap this thing, if that's the case, I've had to roll up my sleeves and figure out how to do it. I've had friendlies where I've had people that I know that I've called on that have, either are doing business or they're prospects, but I really don't have this subject matter expertise, this superpower that I know someone else has.
Hmm.
I need to find someone. I'm
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed. I know that I can't do the things all myself anymore.
Yeah.
I need help. That is the hands down. And sometimes it's, I need a coach, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, I'm not even sure that I'm on the right track. So I need a business coach or an executive coach to help me figure that out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, I have these other leaders and I just haven't invested in sales, right? And so I want to
Yeah.
bring somebody in who has a playbook that can come in and help me crush it. And so those are the indicators, I think, that you're like, all right, it's almost a checklist in your mind. Like, I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm doing too much. I'm not doing what I love. Oftentimes that's the thing.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
this because I wanted to do what I love and I'm not doing what I love. I actually hate selling. Right. And so it's like, well, now's the time. And you've admitted that you hate selling. So maybe you should let the person that you bring in do the thing because it's not all of us can be great at everything. And that is probably the last piece that I would say to you is when you're feeling like you're doing so many things that you're not doing anything well or as well as you should be, it's time.
I love that. That was perfect. That was beautiful. Cool, cool. So if somebody is interested, wants to have another conversation with you about this, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm easy to get in touch with. They can get in touch with you to get in touch with me. No, just kidding. So I am, they can either email me, right?
Hmm.
So, and I actually am in the process of transitioning, but currently Megan Dimmer at solve.work, going to
Okay.
be Megan at megandimmer.com. But I'm
Woohoo.
literally transitioning like today. So I'm waiting
Okay.
for that authentication to be finalized. But I'm just a brand change, right? Because I want my own business and I am the fractional leader and the executive coach and career coach. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Okay.
I am currently actually looking to work with some additional organizations fractionally. I'm always excited about coaching business owners and people mid career looking to make a change who feel stuck.
Okay.
And as we mentioned earlier, women are sort of my, the soft spot in my heart. But I do also work with anybody who fits sort of that growth mindset, wanting to do well. And very important, I only work with top performers. So if you never really perform that level of, let's say, a top performer,
Mhm.
I can refer you to other people for sure, but I love to work with people who really want to take it to the next level and crush it.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. And you are all over LinkedIn as well.
I'm all over LinkedIn, so of course you can find me. I'm Dimmer. On LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Megan Dimmer. Yes, thank you.
Yes, yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So what we'll do is we'll put all your information in the show notes. So anybody that wants to reach out to you, they can just click the link and make that happen. Megan, thank you so much. This has been insightful. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Rick. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.